Welcome back, dear learners. Today's lesson is called New Media and Oral History. In our previous lesson, we learned about the evolution of new recording and digitization technologies that have improved how audio and video recordings are conducted, especially in terms of their quality and storage. In this unit, we will learn about new digital formats and platforms that showcase oral history collections to large audiences in interactive ways. At the same time, we will also discuss how the usage of digital platforms, especially social media formats like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, to tell stories affect public collective memory and vice versa. We will further dwell into the opportunities and complexities that this digital phenomena holds for the future of history as a discipline itself. Next, we address questions related to digital divide between those with access to technology and those without. That rapid digitalization of the processes of storage and dissemination of oral histories have entailed. Here, we will try to identify major challenges of accessibility to technology that social groups and communities face and discuss ways of mitigating them. And finally, we will learn about the ethical issues involved in using digital data in the form of recordings. We will learn how data is to be used keeping in mind aspects such as consent, confidentiality, and agendas. So, learners, the first subsection of today's lesson is called Interactive and Multimedia Storytelling. For many years after oral history as a subject received considerable recognition in academic circles, historians had been largely presenting their collections in the form of books and articles that analyze video and audio recordings of participants. At most, live audio video records were showcased during conferences and presentations in the form of short clips. Furthermore, although raw data in the form of digitized archives of interviews, music recordings, even photographs had been made available in public libraries, first in America from the 1970s, followed by several European countries, access was restricted through bureaucratic checks such as authorization letters. Moreover, for the historically untrained, listening to long hours of interviews that lack a context is a strained activity that many do not wish to undertake. Thus, outreach of oral histories written by professional historians remained limited to academic circles and to the occasional history buff for most of the 20th century. At the same time, stories, testimonies, and experiences of participants of major historical events such as war remained outside the reach of global audiences. Interestingly, the surge of multimedia technology, internet, connectivity, smartphones, and social media in the last 15 years has led to a boom in innovative storytelling that are both engaging and interactive, thus making oral histories accessible to larger audiences. Moreover, audio-video recordings showcased through visually appealing interfaces of websites, mobile apps, and social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram have been able to spark a greater interest in global audiences towards oral history, its conservation and analysis too. The result has been that archives that once boasted hundreds of annual users for their collections now regularly track users of their oral history interviews all over the world. Academic initiatives like archive.org that provide digital accessibility of recorded interviews in both audio and video modes are fine examples of such archives. Various oral historians of America have collectively praised the initiative by the Institute of Museum and Library in America called Oral History in Digital Age (OHDA) project that offers content to use digital technologies in creating and collecting oral histories. Stephen Sloan in 2013, while giving an overview of OHDA, said, "The OHDA initiative offers both a critical and accessible tool for oral historians. Oral history is a big tent, yet the concerns of practitioners coming from a wide range of disciplines and working in distinctly different settings are represented well here. From the seasoned practitioner to the neophyte oral historian, there is essential content to help design, develop, deliver, and disseminate digital oral history projects successfully. The site acts as a clearinghouse for information on digital practice and oral history, information that in the past had to be gleaned from sources that paid little attention to the distinct goals and objectives of the oral historian. Thus, OHDA serves like a manual, storehouse, and a learning space to both professional and amateur oral historians. It offers its users a potent, flexible, and functional blueprint to fashion and hone their approach. The essays and resources collected under the OHDA initiative are meant to assist oral historians making the transition from analog to digital recording as well as digital thinking. They include a short primer on digital audio and video, advice on choosing a digital recorder and microphone within one's budget, an introduction to basic digital recording concepts and techniques, and case studies that can provide some insight into project organization in the digital age, ethical concerns for interviewers, and one practitioner's decision to record exclusively with video. Furthermore, according to Schneider, popular media outlets such as YouTube or SoundCloud also offer near instant and free distribution of audio and video of oral histories, while digital repository and content management systems, CMSs as we call it, like Content DM or Omeka, or even Drupal, WordPress, provide powerful infrastructure for housing oral histories in a digital archive or library, as well as for showcasing them. Systems such as OHMS, Oral History Metadata Synchronizer, now provide free online access to oral history interviews. Mobile applications like CurateSpace are part of the mix too, as they can provide a framework for mobile users to hear oral history not only in a moment but in specific locales as well because of its GPS tracking feature. From here on, we will discuss several projects that have been undertaken by both professional oral historians and even communities in the last 15 years and which use these digital platforms. In doing so, we will see how creators of oral history utilize CMS designers, app makers, and online social media outlets to tell their stories. Control management systems have been playing a crucial role in shaping engaging and interactive ways to collect and showcase community oral histories that involve members or participants of an event like war or natural disaster as stakeholders. Here, members of the community and participants of the events become both producers and consumers of the history. They are producers by contributing their testimonies and experiences in recorded form, which are then showcased on multimedia platforms such as websites, apps, and social media. Then they become consumers by viewing them as users of the platforms. Moreover, interactive features such as comment boxes and live discussion forums, as well as other features that enable uploading of new material in the interfaces, gives the histories a life of their own as users add, comment, and discuss context and viewpoints, making the viewing even more interesting. Let us take some examples. The Center for Public History plus Digital Humanities at Cleveland State University developed the Cleveland Historical Project, a mobile application and mobile optimized website available on the internet. This was to curate the city through layers of interpretive storytelling with a particular emphasis on multimedia and especially sound. They have used the CMS called CurateSpace. Each story on Cleveland Historical consists of several layers of information, images, sound, video, and a few hundred words of texts. The stories are also geolocated and displayed on a map, allowing for easy navigation and wayfinding. Importantly, geolocation allows the present physical context of the region to become part of the interpretive frame, transforming the landscape into a laboratory for informal learning. Another innovative feature has been to engage users to contribute their stories about Cleveland to make the project more enriching. Another interesting initiative, known as Endangered Language Archive, uses interactive media platforms to preserve dying indigenous languages from around the world. Creating an archive of languages, this project aims to collaborate with local community stakeholders not only as consultants but as co-researchers. Funded by the ELDP, this project brings in layered research of endangered indigenous languages by using new web-based technology such as the Web 2.0. This technology enables the inclusion of social networking features similar to Facebook and Instagram. Simply put, this archive enables depositors of materials to select how the information is to be distributed to whom it is to be distributed. ELAR aims to level the playing field by offering more equitable access to various types of users rather than privileging the single channel provision to researchers only. Oksana Hudoshik, a researcher, tells us about ATO, Oral History, launched in 2016 with the aim of recording, collecting, and storing and making public oral testimonies of participants in the events of the Russian-Ukraine war in Donbass. Stories from this collection were published thematically: the history of the creation of volunteer battalions, memories of participants of military operations, women in the military, chaplains, etc. It should be noted that at this stage of collecting war memories and testimonies, the new media began to play a very important role. The involvement of social media and video hosting channels in the collection and dissemination of war testimonies and memories has become an everyday reality, and individual stories are becoming transformed into a common space of memory. Here, we must mention a project from our own backyard of India called the 1947 Partition Archive. This is a project that records and showcases stories and testimonies of people who witnessed the partition of 1947. Though it was started in Berkeley, California in 2010, today it is a registered organization in Delhi. This project has grown substantially in the last 15 years as they have incorporated new digital platforms for showcasing their records. Initially starting with a Facebook page that invited people to share the stories of the partition, today its website has a dedicated corner to collect stories of anyone who wishes to share. Moreover, its Instagram handle, through long posts and short reels, draws the interests of many users who engage with the stories, commenting and providing even newer contexts. It is a good example about how oral histories have been made accessible to larger audiences. With this, we come to the first section. We come to the end of the first subsection of our lesson. Next, we go on to the next subsection, which is called social media and public memory. Collective memory, which is a social mechanism in remembering certain events as part of a shared history, has long been a focus in the study of sociology and history. This concept was first introduced by Hugo van Hofmannsthal in 1902 and later popularized as a pioneering topic of research by Maurice Halbwachs in the early 20th century, who emphasized that memory is not just an individual memory but is also shaped by social groups. In his book La Cadres, Sociale de la Mémoire, Halbwachs asserts that memory operates within a collaborative context here. Shared beliefs and collective experiences shape individual memories rather than vice versa. Nora in 1978 further elaborated on collective memory as what remains of the past in the group's experiences, or rather what these groups do with the past, and introduced the notion of lieux de mémoire, sites of memory, referring to symbolic places, objects, or practice that serve as repositories of collective media. Furthermore, Mama Saklisi and Gersmania contend that understanding the formation and evolution of collective memory within a society requires in-depth examination of the media's role as a significant mnemonic agent. This is where the question or the idea of media and memory interrelate. The pervasive influence of media communication, a process known as mediaization, facilitates a state of constant connectivity in which collective memories are fostered. Media can place selective emphasis on glorious moments from the past while downplaying guilt-ridden ones, celebrate national heroes while demonizing villains. Thus, benefiting from widespread accessibility, skillful utilization of narrative structures, and compelling audio-video techniques, media contributes to the renewal of memory that inevitably involves obsolescence, displacement, and discarding. Several studies have opened intriguing inquiries regarding the impact of media representations on the commemoration of overlooked historical figures and events in the collective body of knowledge. For example, despite his relative obscurity in American collective memory, Alexander Hamilton, the first United States Secretary of Treasury and one of America's founding fathers, experienced a resurgence and enduring prominence following the success of Lin-Manuel Miranda's acclaimed Broadway production Hamilton. This cultural phenomena revitalized public memory surrounding Hamilton through effective storytelling and narrative techniques, eliciting emotional engagement with American history. Even in India, the recent national campaign celebrating 75 years of independence called for reviving India's unsung heroes, individuals who played crucial roles during the national struggle but never appeared in history through academic and popular channels. This has led to a resurgence of stories about regional participants of the freedom struggle, and these stories are being channeled to audiences through media platforms, reshaping Indian collective memory. Researchers have also found that historical portrayals in television programs such as Vikings and The Crown, which appear in OTT platforms, have been found to develop stronger connection to historical events among viewers. Memories attain social significance when disseminated through media channels, framing media as a conduit linking personal and collective remembrance. An interesting aspect to keep in mind when studying effects of media and collective memory convergence is that media channels can be used to promote particular political or social agendas to deliberately shape collective memory of different social groups in a definite way. For example, when participants from 11 countries were asked to rank the 10 most significant events of World War II, a set of core events that were agreed upon. Sorry. For example, when participants from 11 countries were asked to rank the 10 most significant events of World War II, a set of core events were widely agreed upon. However, the list provided by Russian participants displayed the least overlap with those of other countries, prompting concerns over the disproportionate influence of the American version of the war on global perceptions. Zandberg, along with his fellow writers, identifies a phenomena called reversed memory, wherein present events serve as a lens through which past events can give relevance. In this respect, modern media outlets hold considerable sway in shaping past perceptions, although the impact on viewers is often more nuanced and indirect. Agenda setting theory, it's a media theory, poses the notion that the media may not be successful much of the time in telling people what to think, but it is stunningly successful in telling its readers what to think about. McCombs and Shaw, in their groundbreaking Chapel Hill study conducted during the 1968 presidential elections in the United States, discovered a noteworthy correlation between public perception of key election issues and media coverage. Following their seminal study, agenda setting research gained prominence. The concept of salience transfer, whereby media emphasis on certain issues impacts their perceived importance by the public, that is, the public agenda, became a significant topic of interest. With recent development of digital technologies, especially social media, there has been a significant change in the way media and memory make. With recent development of digital technologies, especially social media, there has been a significant change in the way media and memory making interact. Social media is slowly but definitely changing the way we build and manage collective memories, and this needs to be academically captured in the form of new research. Berkner and Donk tell us that social media, with its ability to disseminate information instantly and deeply, plays a major role in accelerating the formation of shared identities and memories at the individual and community level. Platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok allow people to share experiences, recounting personal histories, as well as documenting major events which contribute to the formation of collective memories. Thus, in the digital context, this collective memory does not only develop in the form of narratives that are created by official or academic institution, but also through the interaction and active participation of social media users that generate different forms of shared memory that are more inclusive and based on personal experiences. This creates new challenges in managing, identifying, and verifying digitally constructed collective memories. Although many studies have addressed the relationship between social media and collective memory, the focus has been more on large social movements of global events recorded in digital archives such as Black Lives Matter movement or major tragedies, amongst others. Indeed, studies tend to focus on the globalization of memory and the ways in which social media is used on a large scale to influence people's perception of major issues or social changes that span many countries or continents. As a consequence, the long-term impact of memory digitization on the collective identity of local communities and the history constructed in digital space has not been discussed in depth, and therefore there is still a gap in understanding the role of digital archives in social media in shaping the history and identity of communities, especially at the local and smaller community levels. As mentioned above, relevant previous research is Lieberman, who examined the role of social media in building collective memories on social movements such as Black Lives Matter, social media being a tool to fight for greater social rights. Another study by Berkner and Donk also highlighted how social media is changing the way history is constructed, but the study focuses more on large historical memories and international events, while Ebrecht Hartman examines the digitization of historical memory as in the context of the Holocaust, but does not discuss how it affected local communities and their identities in smaller societies. Even where projects have taken steps to record the effects of historical events, such as the Russia-Ukraine war, on smaller communities within Ukraine, their focus has been more in collecting national testimonies to strengthen Ukrainian nationalism. Nevertheless, even with the lack of attention from researchers, the ever-increasing effects of social media on memory making of even smaller and localized communities and societies is hard to ignore anymore. Theoretically speaking, any web user with a digital recorder or a camera recorder implemented on his mobile phone or laptop can nowadays become a witness, regardless of his or her age. With the technology provided, he or she may therefore record a video account of an oral testimony for various purposes. The account can involve his or her normal, everyday activities or duties, share opinions on the author and family matters, but it might also be a more or less purposefully made record of important events from crime occurrences and natural disasters as far as war scenes. The same applies to interviews, homemade or more official. Whilst little can be done in regard to authenticity of such recordings, their credibility is a different case. It is slightly important, however, to be able to distinguish storytelling from a speech of historical mark. The users give their testimony mostly in the form of public video blogs and spoken words, often supported with strong emotional reactions. Trembling voices, tears, and gestures are the essence of their statements. A personal, seemingly minor account could theoretically acquire historical traits if it becomes very popular. The same applies to videos of many YouTubers. The more the narration is supported by other users, the more convincing and relevant the overall message becomes. This, in turn, can even have considerable political implications, at least in local politics, given the impact that social media nowadays have as a non-mainstream tool of shaping public opinion. Once a video blog is published, it becomes the subject of social media community discussion, that is, if it has been noticed in the World Wide Web. Let us note that the measurement of credibility in social media does not necessarily depend on persons of authority in society, example historians, psychologists, and other specialists, but mainly on the amount of attention a video receives from other social media participants and co-creators. Therefore, likes, shares, tags, and subscriptions are traits which show a user's renown or even become his trademark. Nonetheless, they use a currency with which a user buys popularity. More technically speaking, the more likes or thumbs under a video and the more viral it becomes, the more credible and persuasive it is, or so it appears. Whilst imagery and writing comprise a large part of interactive dialogue that social media create, oral testimony and storytelling captured on camera are those which exert the most emotional influence, especially if the interview is combined with images. Apart from the multitude of everyday video blog reports from YouTubers, another type of oral accounts can be found on the web, one which certainly receives no less credit among the internet society. These are the actual interviews with witnesses of pivotal events in the recent few decades of world history. What is topical? Many of such recordings have been meticulously collected and shared on YouTube, Facebook, and other web media services. Such interviews, when shared through interactive multimedia formats, complete with background narration, taglines, and rolling photographs that provide interesting contexts, can assist in agenda setting for many agencies. Amongst them, concerned members of the community whose history is showcased may even use posts of videos to renew or even construct new collective memories. Sadly, such constructions may also be the result of political agendas too. Basically, each of the oral interviews offers a unique insight into the circumstances of more or less significant events and can be an effective experience. It also carries great comparative value. And as mentioned, if an agenda arises, the videos are nowadays easily accessible and can therefore be used for many purposes, even political. On the other hand, accessing longer videos and watching it until the very end, considering that some interviews are quite long, might not necessarily be welcoming for everyone. This, consequently, somewhat restricts the category of receivers to a dedicated circle of online audience, mostly mature. To conclude, dear learners, from the discussion above, we have learned certain key points regarding the growing interrelationship between social media and memory making. First, it is to be remembered that social media enables oral testimonies of even the most common individuals of a society to be recorded and showcased, and it is the currency of likes and comments that determine the historical worthiness of that testimony. Dear learners, then, is this not a wonderful development for historians? For now, there is a source that can be used to construct the history of the ordinary members of this world. At the same time, preservation of testimonies of witnesses of pivotal events like wars, natural disasters, cultural revolutions, political upheavals, and showcasing them on social media to be viewed, shared, and even saved by the millions help create global collective memories of localized events. Dear learners, with this we come to the end of the second subsection of today's lesson. The next subsection is called Digital Divide. Now, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) defines the digital divide as the gap between individual households, business, and geographic areas at different socio-economic levels about both their opportunities to access information and communication technologies, that is ICTs, and to their use of the internet for a wide variety of activities. Chandola Basu of the Observer Research Foundation simply puts it as the digital divide can be explained as the inequalities between the digital haves and the have nots in terms of the access to the internet and the ICTs. Due to the ever increasing importance of the internet and a rapid digital transformation on account of the COVID 19 pandemic, the UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed has even claimed that the digital divide has the potential to be the new face of inequality. Kyra Taylor further writes that when the term digital divide was first used in the late 20th century, it described the gap between those with cell phone access and those without it. The term has since expanded to include the technical and financial ability to use available technology and access to the internet. However, the meaning of digital divide is constantly shifting with the development of even newer technology. Researchers today use different parameters such as availability, affordability, and digital literacy to measure digital divide, even exploring the usage dimension and the physical access dimension, that is, use of internet and access to mobile phones, respectively, are also taken. Moreover, they have also classified different types of digital divide. These are number one, the gender divide. The internet gender divide is striking, especially in developing countries. Though mobile connectivity is spreading drastically, it is not spreading equally. Women are still lagging behind men. Men are 90% more likely to own a mobile phone than women, especially in developing countries. Even among women owning mobile phones, they have no access to internet connectivity. The gender digital divide in terms of access to the internet remains largest in the world's least developed countries at 32.9%. The internet gap is largest in Africa, while in terms of mobile phone ownership, the gender digital divide is most pronounced in South Asia, where women are 26% less likely to own a mobile phone than a man. Social digital divide. Internet access creates relationships and social circles among people with shared interests. Social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, etc. create online peer groups based on similar interests. Internet usage has created social stratification, which is evident among those that are connected to the internet and those that are not. Not connected groups are sidelined since they don't share in the internet benefits of the connected groups. The next point is access digital divide. The main barriers under this point are lack of communication infrastructure with sufficient reliable bandwidth for internet connections and cost, the ability to purchase rent without financial hardship, and the necessary equipment. This results in lack of access to technology. Another category within many countries is the urban rural divide, with rural populations much more likely to be cut off from digital technologies than city residents. In India, this divide has been particularly acute. The National Family Health Survey of 2019-21 provides data segregation based on the rural-urban divide. While 72.5% of the urban males and 51.8% of the urban females have ever used the internet, only 48.7% of rural males and 24.6% of the rural females qualify for this condition. However, this gap has been gradually narrowing in the last 5 years. Apart from this, the linguistic divide in India is another big hurdle that one needs to cross, especially with a multitude of languages being spoken here. And although new AI-based translation technologies are available for researchers such as CAMB AI, YouTube's automatic caption and translator, Amara, among others, the road ahead is still long, as many researchers, especially from Indian universities themselves, have restricted access due to budget constraints. Indeed, then, even as the gap between internet users and non-users, individuals owning mobile phones and those that do not, close in, the essentials of digital oral history may still be out of reach for many. In the previous section, when we learned about the showcasing of videos, both daily blogs and interviews with witnesses on social media, it was noted that these have the potential of becoming new sources to construct histories. In selecting these sources, trainees of oral history have to keep in mind that the digital revolution also has the capacity to diminish oral history's cherished aspiration to serve as people's methodology. It is important then that when providing training in oral history methods, attention is paid to tackling digital literacy, and a digital divide which threatens to afford some groups better access to breakthrough in the use of oral history than other groups. Dear learners, it is necessary to think of innovative mitigation techniques that can be used to bridge the digital divide during pivotal oral history projects. These techniques often require collaboration with other fields like engineering and computer programming. Please keep in mind that, like earlier pioneering historians who did not shy away from turning to technology to find out historical truths and facts by collaborating with experts from fields like chemistry, geology, botany, zoology, it has become imperative that we jump once again on the collaborative bandwagon to bring connectivity and accessibility to people and communities that have been kept away from recording their stories and testimonies, their witnesses. This last section of our discussion will focus on key ethical considerations that center on respecting the narrator's autonomy and dignity while managing the challenges of digital preservation and widespread access. Adherence to professional guidelines such as those from certified oral history associations is crucial. Collecting materials to construct oral histories have always entailed ethical considerations because of the nature of their sources. Oral historians use memories, testimonies, and experiences of participants to reconstruct histories. They are usually deeply personal, which the interviewees might want to keep private and do not wish to be shared. Some of the most difficult ethical issues related to oral history interviews involve children, detainees, or medical patients. But there are legal and ethical limitations which are applicable to all oral history sources. Some interviews may have personal issues, for example, a traumatic experience or a traumatic childhood that they may not want the researcher to write or talk about in public, or indeed to discuss at all. In such cases, it is important to state in advance what kind of information is being collected, how it will be used so as to enable potential interviewees to decide whether the research project is something they want to participate in. Indeed, all oral history interviewing requires the researchers to consider a complex range of ethical issues, requiring them to balance the need to respect the wishes of the informant while also maintaining professional integrity in writing the history which they believe does best justice to all the sources. Ethically and even legally, obtaining consent is of utmost importance because the interviewee is the copyright holder of the content. That is, the words of the interview which cannot be used unless the interviewee grants his or her formal consent. This will usually be obtained through the interviewee signing a written consent form, although it can be obtained orally on the recording. While consent can be obtained after the interview, the best time to acquire it is immediately at the end of the interview when both interviewer and interviewee are present to discuss the implications of the statement. So, dear learners, with this, let us sum up here by outlining the different categories of ethical considerations that interviewers must keep in mind when recording oral history interviews or even when using videos created by others. Along with the categories, the digital challenges and the best practice to mitigate the challenge is also listed. Number 1, informed consent and voluntary participation. The challenge. Narrators must understand how their story might be used in the digital realm, where it can be easily shared, decontextualized, or reused for purposes unforeseen in time of recording. Consent agreements should be granular, specific, and explain potential online access and usage scenarios. The best practice to mitigate this challenge: ensure participation is voluntary and the narrator can withdraw at any time without negative repercussions. Document consent clearly, potentially using electronic consent forms that outline digital uses can be used. Privacy and confidentiality. The challenge. Anonymity can be difficult to guarantee in digital formats, as information can sometimes be re-identified using other online data sources. Decisions about online access, data minimization, anonymization, and pseudonymization carry significant ethical weight. The best practice to mitigate this challenge: offer clear options for anonymity or restricted access, store data security with robust access controls and encryption, regularly review data retention policies, and implement secure data disposable methods when information is no longer needed or requested to be erased. Lastly, intellectual property and copyright. The challenge. Digital dissemination makes copyright management complex, as content can be easily duplicated and distributed globally. Best practice: clearly establish ownership and licensing considerations in the initial agreement. Narrators may retain moral rights to be named as authors and to prevent derogatory treatment or manipulation of their words. With this, We come to the end of our discussion on the topic new media and oral history. Dear learners, I hope you all enjoyed the class. We shall meet again the next time.